The views, opinions, and contents of this show are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. They do not necessarily reflect those of Local Matters Broadcasting, LLC, its owners, partners, affiliates, assigns, or heirs. Having said that, it's now time to say good morning, St. Johns County. Welcome to the weekly radio show of the St. Johns County Council on Aging, better known in our community as the COA. We are your local nonprofit agency who for the past 50 years has been leading and advocating for the dignity, independence, health, and community involvement of older St. Johns County residents. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, broadcasting to you live from the studio of WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. Joining me today is someone who is a beautiful person both inwardly and outwardly, the lovely Amy Robinson, our development manager for COA. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning, Brian. How are you today?
So good to see you. For those of you who are listening who do not know, Amy and I are married, coming up on our 27th year of marriage this year. So we've actually already said good morning to one another, but we just wanted to do it on the radio show as well this morning. But today is all about the 50th anniversary of COA. And one of the ways that we're celebrating it this morning is I am giving away a $50 gift certificate to River House classes.
That's amazing.
Yes, and so the River House, as you know, we have lots of classes over there, and it is for anybody 18 or older, so it's not just for seniors. And we have art, and we have dance, and we have music, and we have fishing. If you don't even know how to fish, like you could come and take a class, but we have like 40 classes. And what's so exciting, comparing, now that COVID has COVID is still here, but, we're kind of past that. And so things are picking back up. And it's so exciting to see because when I started, about a year and a half ago, we were running around 180 or so at River House. And now we're up to over 500 people again. And so it's so exciting to see that.
It is. And it's just a testament to the ways that COA is responsive and has been responsive for the past 50 years.
Absolutely. And so this is how you can win that $50 gift certificate. You need to be the 50th person to email me this morning during the show. So you can email me radio@coasjc.org. In the subject line, just put 50th. And then in the email, write your name, address, and phone number. I promise you that we will not send your information out to anybody else. So this is just for this contest. But you need to be the 50th person to email me. So get on your computer, get on your phone, however you can email me and send it to radio@coasjc.org, and I'll be checking that out. But we're traveling back in time to 1973. And one of the things that we were talking about before the show got started is the Older Americans Act that was authorized in 1965 but expanded in 1973, which is allowed COA to kind of get the start.
Right. So in 1973, the federal government added Title V, which created local grants for local community agencies to have multi-purpose senior centers. And a fun fact, if we're doing trivia, about how long do you think volunteers have been the cornerstone of COA services?
Well, having been in the nonprofit world for many, many years, I'm going to really take a guess and say that it was probably volunteers who got it started.
You're right. Look at you showing off this morning. Yes. So it was volunteers who got everything started and wrote to submit the information for those grants. And even today, 50 years later, we have a volunteer board who works to strategize and make sure that we're being responsive to the seniors' needs. And last year we had over 500. Okay, so technically we had 547 active volunteers in Council on Aging last year.
Mm-hmm. And that is absolutely amazing. And when I think of, as the program director, and I think of all the different programs that we do, they would not be possible without all the volunteers.
Right. We could never afford on the government funding that we receive from the Older Americans Act and local matches from state government. We could never afford to do all of the services that Council on Aging is able to provide. But it's the generosity of our volunteers and our donors to give their time and their talents.
Absolutely. So here's a fun fact. The actual name of Council on Aging when it first started was St. Johns County Citizens Advisory Council on Aging Incorporated. That's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful.
And so eventually it got changed to what it is today, St. Johns County Council on Aging, which is still a little bit of a mouthful, but that was changed in 1976. One of the things that you do is, as development manager, in addition to, the fundraising and all the events, is you go out and you speak about COA. And so when you think about when we first got started, they incorporated in 1973, but it was really 1974 that things got rolling out. So can you talk about what happened in 1974, what kicked it off and what was happening back then?
So on February 4th, actually, 1974, we had our first congregate meals served. So we really, truly are this February celebrating 50 years of service to St. Johns County seniors. So we served at Flagler Hospital Cafeteria, which back then was over on Marine Street, very close to our headquarters now, just across the street and down the road slightly. So we were able to serve 60 lunches that day, and we served 10 meals home delivered. So all of that through the generous contributions of volunteers.
And then by December of that year, I'm looking at some of our statistics, we were serving about 2,700 Meals on Wheels. And when you compare that to last year, we did 49,000. So it's, 50 years later, we're serving so many more people through that program.
Yes. And how it's needed, with our growing community, that number is just going to continue to go up. And Meals on Wheels is such a great program. Sometimes I think people are surprised to find out that you can pay for Meals on Wheels if you aren't in a position that you can grocery shop, or your, life circumstances, you have a lot of things going on and you can't grocery shop, don't want to cook, can't cook. You can have your meal delivered, and these are nutritionist approved, healthy meals, fresh fruit, milk if you want it, and it can be delivered by your door or to your door by a volunteer.
And again, that's pretty much almost all of the routes are by volunteers going out and doing that.
Absolutely. So we have 15 routes that go out daily. We have volunteers that help package the meals daily, and then in some of our further locations, it's a once-a-week delivery, and they get frozen Meals on Wheels. But absolutely, there are so many volunteers that are needed. In fact, right around 200 volunteers are what make Meals on Wheels happen. So.
Oh, it's a fantastic program, and so excited to see how it has grown over the years. And that brings us up on our first break, and so we're going to take our break right now. You're listening to the weekly radio show of the Council on Aging, and we'll be back to talk more as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of COA. And welcome back to the weekly radio show of St. Johns County Council on Aging here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. Joining me this morning is Amy Robinson, Development Manager for COA, as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Council on Aging. Let me just remind you, we are giving away a $50 gift certificate to the 50th person to email me, radio@coasjc.org. And you just need to put 50th in the subject line, and then in the email, put your name, address, and phone number. And we do have some emails trickling in, so don't miss out. You need to be the 50th person. So before we went to the break, we were in the 1970s, and we were talking about what was going on. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we mentioned is transportation services started also in 1974.
Absolutely. So we started with some congregate meals. That's what we call when people come to our site and eat. We had home-delivered meals and transportation services, and that was for participants and it was also provided by COA volunteers. Not anymore, though. We have a center transportation off of Old Moultrie, and we run several buses, paratransit, and Sunshine Bus, which is our public transportation for St. Johns County.
So all the yellow buses and the white buses that you see around, those are ours. And but the first one was a 12-person Ford minibus in 1974 that was purchased and used to get that started. So let's jump into the 1980s. 1980s is when we actually saw our very first senior center come to fruition, and that was at 11 Old Mission Avenue, and that was thanks to a fundraising drive that was led by COA co-founder and board vice president Rosalie Gordon-Mills. And so what's interesting to see is, back in the 1980s, fundraising played an important role, and even today, fundraising plays an important role to make sure COA is able to do the programs and the services that we provide.
Absolutely. So we talked about Older Americans Act, and that brings down federal and state monies, and then we have a local match. One of our great partners is St. Johns County. And they help to make sure that we can pull those monies down, because if they did not do their part, we couldn't offer the services that we do. So that provides so many services, but not enough. That government funding only funds about 67% of what we are able to do. And our board and our leadership at St. Johns County isn't just interested in doing what we can with merely government funds. They want to see what the actual needs are in our community and how can we meet those needs. And that's through volunteers, and it's through fundraising and major donors. And we have a host of opportunities to get involved in donations, whether it's our annual fund, our special funds, our monthly giving program, so many things. And if people want to be involved in that way, their corporate sponsorships for things, they can just give me a call. They can call our main number, 904-209-3700, and ask about donating. And you don't even have to remember my name. Just say that you want to learn more about donating. A live person answers the phone, and they will direct you to me. And, we can just meet and talk about, you can get a tour of Council on Aging. You can see the things that we do to serve seniors for yourself and see how you might want to be involved.
And I think one of the things that I've discovered, you started at COA before I did, and then I was kind of voluntold to get involved, right? You would have some things coming up, and you would volunteer me, which was great, and it allowed me to get my foot in the door and to learn about COA. But one of the things that I've discovered, even as a volunteer, I didn't realize everything, and then once I, became the program director, it really opened my eyes to how much we do in the community.
Right. It does not matter what stage we are in our aging process. We have figured out how to utilize those resources that we have and our volunteers and listen to the community. We try to be responsive to the actual needs in our community. And then how do we connect services to those needs? And sometimes it makes more sense for us to refer to outside agencies because we can't do it ourselves. But we serve as the hub of resources for St. Johns County. So if you need Meals on Wheels, we have that. If you need dementia support, we have that. If you need prescription assistance, we have that. If you want somebody to travel with, we have a COA travel club. We have lifelong learning. There are things that I know we're forgetting. Assistive devices. We have those that you can borrow. So, it's just comprehensive programs wherever you are in your stage in the aging journey.
And you mentioned the prescription assistance, and so as we're kind of moving, we went through the 70s, a little bit of the 80s, and into the 90s is when our prescription assistance program started. And since that program began, we have saved seniors over $32 million.
That's just astounding. And I think it was $3 million last year.
Yes.
So I haven't heard the final tally yet, but it was right around that $3 million. And that's just, for people who don't know, if you develop AFib or, some of the heart failure medicines or dementia medicines, they are so astronomically priced. And our nurse can help you and work with your doctor to sign up for pharmaceutical companies' low or no cost prescription programs. So she does a fabulous job. She helps you navigate that because it is a lot of paperwork, and those programs' guidelines are changing all the time. And so she stays up to date on that so that you can concentrate on your health and well-being. And what a fabulous program that's made possible by UF Health St. John's. So
yeah, and that's the other thing too. You talked about the importance of we talked about fundraising and donors, and it's great to have some of the other organizations in St. Johns County that support us in those ways. And
yes.
So UF Health St. John's, United Way is a great partner with us, and so it's great to have those grants that come in that also allow us to do programs like that.
Right, absolutely. So best community to age, really, truly, because of the community partnerships that we have that you talked about, and how giving and caring this community is for each other and our elders.
Yeah, and some of our volunteers that we have are snowbirds, and so they go back home for the summer up north, and then they come down here for the wintertime. And I've had several of them say that their equivalent of the COA back home is nothing compared to our COA here. So we are very, very fortunate to have the services and the programs for seniors that we have here in St. Johns County, because it sounds like that is not across the board throughout the nation.
Right. So, yes, very, very blessed by this giving community, by our volunteers, by the leadership who continues to listen and invest where people need the services that they need.
Well, we're heading up on our next commercial break here momentarily, but let me just remind you, if you want to win that $50 gift certificate to classes at the River House, you need to email me, radio@coasjc.org. I do have some emails trickling in, so don't miss out. You want to be that 50th person. When we come back, we'll be gearing up into the 2000s, talking about things that COA has accomplished, and then we'll eventually be looking into the future, what's on the horizon for the next 50 years at COA. And welcome back to the weekly radio show of St. Johns County Council on Aging here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. Joining me today is Amy Robinson, Development Manager for COA, as we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Council on Aging. Let me just remind you that we're giving away a $50 gift certificate to River House classes. You need to be the 50th person to email me at radio@coasjc.org. And we do have some that have trickled in, and I have one here from Amy Robinson that came in over the break, and you are not allowed to participate in this, Amy.
Oh my gosh, I thought I was going to be the 50th.
Good try. No. So now you've thrown my numbers out of whack here. So anyways.
So what are we up to? Are we up to like 49? Is the next person going to win? I'm
not going to reveal that. I'll reveal that in the next section, because I don't want people to get discouraged and not participate. So email me, radio@coasjc.org, if you want a $50 gift certificate to the River House, be the 50th person. All right, well, we were talking about the history of COA, and of course we don't have enough time on the radio show here to dive into everything, but we move into the 2000s, and so right before that, in 1999, Kathy Brown became the executive director A lot of different things happened during her tenure. We saw the Trout Creek Senior Center open in 2000. The Sunshine Bus System began in 2000 as well. Our Coastal Community Center moved from the 11 Old Mission to 180 Marine Street. Our admin offices moved to 180 Marine Street in 2003. The Sunshine Center started in 2003. The Players Community Center opened in 2007. And then, let's see, River House started in 2010. IMEP in 2010. Transportation headquarters moved over to their current location at Old Moultrie Road. Our community caregiver support program began in 2012. And then during that time, I just want to mention that while, so Kathy Brown had a great vision and implemented a lot of this, but our current executive director, Becky Yanni, was serving as development manager in the role that you're in now. And so, she was out there, raising the money to help that vision become a reality.
Absolutely. Becky started as a volunteer in 2005. So be careful, volunteers. You could one day become the executive
look
director.
At me, right? I started as a volunteer, and now I'm the program director.
Yeah, but that's great because the volunteers really do drive our mission. And so then she started shortly thereafter. She joined the staff and on the development team, and then eventually became the development manager. And she did go out and raise funds, and she worked extensively on raising funds for River House and some of the other initiatives that we had at the annual fund. And so she has been a vibrant part of the mission and the growth of Council on Aging during the 2000s.
And I think it's also important to remember how many people behind the scenes are doing what they do. So not only our paid employees, but our volunteers, working behind the scenes to make the vision of leadership become a reality.
Right. Yeah. So we have done so many things through this course of the 50 years, but we're not content to just stay where we are at Council on Aging. So our future depends on the participation of the entire community to be here for our elders and the people who care for them. So as we're thinking about our next 50 years, COA is committed to continuing our strong history of innovation and responsiveness to the changing needs of those we serve. So we're at a time where we're reimagining aging. And that's something we've been talking a lot about internally, about how COA is going to be creative in the possibilities are so numerous on how people want to age. So that's why we created a COA travel club a couple of years ago. And that's why we're adding additional services. But we want everybody 55 and 60 and older to be able to live their greatest potential and to continue to grow and make new connections in their community, with their community, opportunities to be together with like interests at every age and stage through our journey.
And one of the areas of the county I know that we are focusing on is the northwest part of the county. It is growing, and we do get some inquiries from time to time from folks that are in that area as to when we're going to get something started there. And, that is on our radar. We do want to do that. But, again, it comes down to the funding.
Right.
The federal, state, and county government gives us funding, but that only goes so far, as we've talked about. And so then it comes down to those other funding sources, grants to help us do that, and then, of course, our donors who support us.
Right. And it's not just the funding aspect, which is important, but it's also what does that community want and need. And so Council on Aging has never been there to tell people this is how you're going to age, and you're going to age our way. So any of the centers that you go to, they have a different feel, some different programs. They're not all the same at each of the centers, but that's because that center is being responsive to the needs in that particular community. So you have a center like Nocatee that's really focused on caregiving and caregiver support, because that is one of the biggest needs in that community. And then you have our Hastings Senior Center that does a lot of active and engaging programs and tries to get resources in via Zoom, because that location is a little more isolated and a little bit more difficult for them to be as connected to some of the resources. So each location is a little bit different. So I'm just saying that as we're looking at how we're going to serve the northwest part of St. Johns County, we are studying what will actually be there and actually benefit them, what senior centers are going to look like there and what they want.
Mm-hmm. And what I love about COA is, like you said, like we don't want to tell people how to age. Like we just want to help them age well.
Right.
And when I think of our independent living services department, that department helps to coordinate with home health agencies to go into the homes to help provide services to seniors to keep them in their home as long as possible.
Because that's where they want to be. And that's a vital service that COA offers. They, not just for the senior who wants to remain in their home, but the community at large, because it requires much less funds to keep someone at home than it does to place them somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're coming up on our next break here in just a moment. If you haven't emailed me yet, be sure to do so, radio@coasjc.org. And hopefully in the next segment, I might be able to announce a winner. So be sure to stay tuned. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the weekly radio show of the St. Johns County Council on Aging. And we are in our last segment here, and I just want to remind you, if you want the $50 gift certificate to River House, you can email us at radio@coasjc.org. We have not had 50 people, but I'm going to do this. The next person to email me will be the winner. So email radio@coasjc.org. And so we were talking about our history. We got into the 2000s. And so in 2013, I just want to kind of get this in here before our segment ends. Becky Yonah became our executive director. The PV Memory Center opened in 2015. Coastal Transportation did as well. And then in 2021, the COA Flagler Health opened. Flagler Health Plus Village at Nocatee opened. And I realize it has a different name now that UF Health is over it. And but anyway, so we're just talking about all the different accomplishments. Over the years, we've had 17 board presidents. We've had multiple employees, multiple volunteers. And we don't have time to mention all of them this morning. But so I just want to give the last portion of this show over to you, Amy. You could talk about what's next on the horizon and into the future.
Right. So happy 50th anniversary to Council on Aging, and 50 years of making aging brighter and better for seniors, regardless of the stage of aging they find themselves. But Council on Aging exists because of a long line of heroic individuals who were willing to create the future that they envisioned. So back in 1973, I don't think those volunteers had any idea what the needs were going to end up being and how COA was going to meet those needs. And I think they would be proud if they saw it today. But we don't want to end there. So we invite everyone in our community to make history with us. Please join us in creating an ever brighter future for seniors and caregivers in our community. It takes all of us, right?
Absolutely.
And so, having said that, there are countless ways that you can be involved. We have volunteers. You can, if you're good at something, you can possibly teach a class about it or speak about it. Volunteers do all of those things. There's Meals on Wheels. There are, our Care Connection program that we've not talked enough about today, but Caring for Lawns, that's coming back up in March. They're going to start caring for lawns, and they would love to have about 10 more volunteers so that they can take on more lawns. We have people on the waiting list, I believe, to receive lawn service. Did you know, Brian, a senior can be leaned right out of their home if they live in an HOA or in city limits and can't afford or can't take care of their lawns anymore?
And that's why we have Care Connection. We have the volunteers who come in and offer their time to go out and take care of the lawns. But like you said, we need more people to volunteer and be a part of that.
Yeah. So just coming up, there are countless ways to be involved. Donating, if you don't want to volunteer, you can help make all these programs happen with your generous donations. We have an annual meeting coming up in March. So March 21st, we will be having our public meeting, and it is open to the public. You can sign up for our newsletter at coasjc.org, and clear up at the top, it gives you the opportunity to sign up for our newsletter. All of the things that I'm going to be talking about are going to be publicized, and you'll get information on how to register for all of these events, how you want to be involved. So then we have our volunteer appreciation party coming up in April, and we'll just be celebrating 50 years with volunteers and how the impact that volunteers have made through the history of our organization, and celebrating those almost 550 volunteers this past year. In May is Older Americans Month. Did you know that?
I did know that.
Awesome.
Yes. I should know that as the program director for COA.
Did you know that before you started as program
If
director?
I'm being honest, no, I did not.
I don't know that I knew that before I started working at COA either. But we celebrate our centenarian luncheons, and that's where we need you in our community to help us. If you know of a senior who is 95 or better, we need to invite them to our centenarian luncheon. That's going to be at our beautiful location at River House on May 9th. So if you have a business and you want to be a table sponsor, you can be a table sponsor for $250, and you'll get 2 tickets, and you will meet some of these amazingly inspirational elders who are 95 and counting, and they are always counting. They are proud of that 102.75.
Absolutely. And it's always fun to hear, because usually the question comes up, like, what do you contribute to your longevity? And it's interesting to hear some of the different answers, because what you would think would be the same across the board is really not.
Yes.
Each one of them kind of has some different advice.
Yes, and it's great advice, and it's just a delight to get to celebrate and honor them. Then we'll have another centenarian luncheon in Ponte Vedra, and that's at our Players Community Senior Center, and that one serves the seniors in Ponte Vedra and Nocatee. Then coming up, we're already working on our COA Championship, our golf tournament in August, and the gala the night before. So the golf tournament is going to be August 5th, and our gala is August 4th, and that's a little earlier in August than we generally have it. So preparations are well underway, and our theme for the gala this year is a lot of fun. You know, it's the 50th anniversary, so we're going back to the 70s.
To the 70s, wow.
And it's going to be Staying Alive theme, because, you know, we're keeping everything staying alive, and your donations help COA.
So if you have some bell bottoms and your dresser packed away somewhere, get them out.
Are you going as John Travolta?
I might.
That would be great.
I'll have to get a wig since I don't have enough hair. So
Yeah,
I have to,
that's okay. We can find one, I'm sure. And then coming up, rounding out the year for development events is Christmas on the River, and that fund raises for our Care Connection program that we've talked a little bit about already today. But that is always the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and it's going to be November 24th this year at River House. So lots of opportunities to be engaged and active as a donor at some of our various events. And then there are a lot of
annual fund sponsorships and a capital campaign that we're working on that people can become involved with and really lay the foundation for the future of our next 50 years.
And I believe so with the capital campaign, and we're still in the planning stages of that. And one of the things that we're hoping to do is put a shelter over the entrance to our Coastal Community Center area, because right now, when the buses pull up, if it's raining, our seniors have to get out of the bus in the rain, which when you think, for somebody like us, who's not
It's
using
just
a
annoying.
walker or in a wheelchair, it's a quick, it's a quick
annoying,
jolt.
but it's,
for our seniors,
yeah.
Some of them are in wheelchairs, some of them are using walkers, and so it's a slower process to get from the bus to the inside. And a lot of them get very wet in that process. And so that's one of the things that we're hoping to plan to raise money for.
Right, because the bus has a lift and they are out in the elements while the lift is lowering them to pavement level. And so, we have our staff that tries to hold umbrellas over them, but they still get wet in the process. So that shelter, that portico over is going to be large enough that 2 buses fit beneath it, and it's going to make a big difference. We're also elevating the front of the building, so currently there's a big ramp that they go up, and we're going to be increasing the elevation at the front of the building so that the bus or the car or however they're arriving gets them in properly. So,
well, very exciting. Great to talk about 50 years history of COA, and here's to 50 more years for a great organization. Join me next week as I interview Gene Roth, manager of our Independent Living Services Department. Amy, thank you for being here and talking about COA.
thank you. Bye-bye.